And welcome, Basketball Live. Great to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me. So, we've got a great show today. So glad you joined us. And sitting here with a little bit of the coffee this morning. Little Headbangers Brew, awesome stuff. And you know all about that. Let's put it on the screen here for you to see. Headbangers Brew, our coffee flavors. We have quite a few of them, and there it is. Some new ones for the season. We've got. I can't believe it's no. We've got. Um, where have you been? And not another pumpkin spice. Yeah, another pumpkin spice. There it is. And all of our coffee, you can go right here, sanctuaryinternational.com, or wearemetalwearefamily.com. And that money goes to help support our homeless friends. Folks, if you're joining us today, sign in. We'd love to see who you are and where you're watching from. Let us know where you're from. Love to be able to say hello to you on the screen, and love to greet you personally. So AB is here. Good to see you again, dude. How have you been? Thank you very much for asking. Doing very well. It's a great morning. It's a good time, and I can see that I'm just going to do this real quick. Sorry for the unprofessional. I think that's a little better. There we go. So Sarah says hi from Norway, and I've got some other friends joining, some good friends joining, and good friend David is here from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Good to see you today. And Barry, my good friend, says good morning to me, to John, to Hayden, and the whole sanctuary family. That's a lot of people, isn't it? And good to have you here, Barry, this morning. Sue is here. Good to see you, Sue, from Appleton, Wisconsin. She's awesome. And appreciate you joining us today, Sue. Folks, if you're joining us, let us know. Derek is here from Louisville, Kentucky, our neighbor to the north, here from Nashville. Good to see you also, Derek. We have people from joining us from all over the world today. First time for Lloyd. Welcome, Lloyd. It's good to see you today. I'm glad you joined us. And maybe you're a first timer as well. Would love to know that. Good morning from Springfield, Missouri, Fester Adams. Probably not his real name. From the Adams family. Nina, good morning to you from Metro Detroit. And good friends joining us from everywhere today. So we got a good show ahead, folks. We have Hayden. Hayden is here the whole hour. And Hayden Cockril, as you know, is the sanctuary artist, author of Crimson Six, and really a very interesting guy that you're going to really enjoy. We're going to invite him to come on live with us in just a few minutes, and we'll get to Hayden. Love to spend just a few minutes with you. So fall is in the air, and enjoying spending some time sitting outside. It's not so hot, and it feels a little easier today. Good morning from Spokane, Washington today. Let us know where you're from, folks. I'd love to say hello to you. Donna Maxwell, our good friend, is here from Rome, Georgia. And we have a lot of good friends from Georgia. Lobster Sandwich. Now, there's a good name. It's Dallas. I know Dallas real well. In fact, I did his wedding. Good to see you, Dallas. I'm glad you joined us. And he's an awesome guy. Our Dallas is an awesome guy. Sean is here from San Diego. Yeah. Good to see you, Sean. And Joe from Texas says howdy. Great. Folks, again, if you're joining us, let us know where you're from. So Timothy is here. Good to see you from Lake Balboa. Says he's just checking in. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate that. And good to see you today. Matthew is here from Elmira, Texas. Love our Texas friends. Thank you also, Matthew, for joining today. Good to have you here. Albert is here from Winnipeg, Canada. Our friends to the north. And we are your friends to the south. So good to see you today, Albert. But thank you for joining us today. Like it says here, we're excited that you're here. If you can share this to your social media, let people know that we're live. Say, you need to be watching Pastor Bob because today's show, we got the illustrious Hayden Cockril on, and that's an important thing. So, and again, all of your sanctuary swag, our mugs, our coffee, our t-shirts, posters, all of that, Sanctuary International, there it is, .com, and you'll see our merch there. We got a lot of stuff. We have some of the coolest shirts around, and love to have you go and check them out to see what that's all about. Our shirts, our mugs, we have tons of them. I don't even know how many now, but a lot. And so that's cool. So folks, we're going to bring Hayden on in just a second. And I'm excited to have him as our guest. Next week, we have Adam Cook, singer for A Hill to Die Upon. Got an exciting announcement to make with A Hill to Die Upon, and he'll be here with us next week. So that's a pretty cool thing. Chris is here from Waikapa, which is in Wisconsin, and love to have him here. Christopher Keene, our good friend, Professor Christopher Keene from Azusa, California, professor at Azusa Pacific College, and also longtime sanctuary staff. Great guy. David Kelly is here, who was born in Idaho and still lives in Idaho, in Boise for now. So that's awesome. All over the United States, people are joining us. We appreciate that. Good to have you here with us. Keith Lee, good morning from Lima, Ohio. Great. Good friends in Ohio. And good morning from New Jersey. Good. A lot of good Jersey friends as well. So, folks, we had a great time this weekend. And if you were able to be here with us, we do the first weekend of every month, Saturday and Sunday. We have a sanctuary gathering. The gathering's awesome. And we had a full house, lots of people, sanctuary worship team leading us in worship. I did a little speaking, but sometimes just the best thing is just sitting, eating together, spending time in fellowship. The next one will be the 2nd and 3rd of December. So I think that's the dates, the first Saturday and Sunday of December. We're going to do an early Christmas. It's called a Berry Sanctuary Christmas. And we'll be announcing more about that as we get closer. But we got some really special things planned for that. If you need to plan a road trip around the first part of December, it would be a great time to head to Nashville and join us for the first weekend, Saturday and Sunday of the month of December. Well, folks, I'm excited to introduce our first guest and our only guest today, Mr. Hayden. I almost called you Satan. That wouldn't be good.
Dude, I love that though, man. I mean, my middle name is Stanley, so you could rearrange the words.
And this is live, so I can't go back and go, I probably should edit that out. Yeah. So there we go.
You know what? That's how they know that like we're authentic and we're keeping it real.
Yeah.
Like we're we're not like those other podcasts who, we're not hoity-toity.
And that's definitely not me. Well, Hayden is one of my favorite people on earth. He is awesome. And not only is he awesomely talented, but he's just a great guy. And I appreciate his friendship for a few years now, Hayden. And
Yeah.
almost any artwork that you see coming out of Sanctuary on all of our mugs, on all of our T-shirts, all of our posters, our coffee. Um, it's always Hayden.
Dude, yeah, I'm like the man behind the curtain.
Right, right. Well, curtain no more. We're excited to have you up front and center today, and so good to finally have you talk a little bit about art. We want to talk about some of the things that you're involved with. Got some questions from people to ask you as well. Yeah,
Heck yeah.
Woot and Scott Moore is here.
Boom
Boom shack.
shakalaka. I
Yeah,
love that. I say it all the time, Scott. That's my favorite thing to say.
Scott is awesome. Good friend for a lot of years. The originator of putting together Intense Radio, and he's
Oh,
been for
awesome.
a time. Yeah, so Scott is our Scott is an awesome Scott. Yes. Well, Hayden, there are so many different sides to you. I'm excited to share them with people, but let's talk about a little bit of your background first. You don't live in Nashville.
I do not. I know.
Yeah.
I live in Spokane, Washington. Depends on who you are. Yeah, Spokane, Washington.
And he's our neighbor to the west. And
Yes.
we're to your east. Yes.
Yes.
But so Hayden, you grew up in Spokane.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Still there, still trapped. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But give us a little history. You are one of the better artists that I know. You have a very unique style. And a lot of people probably want to talk about art today, and I'm happy to. When you see an artist, you think, well, they must have studied hard. They must have had a ton of mentors, people pointing out what to do, all of that. How did you get started doing art, and how has that progressed through the years?
Yeah. So I have always been that kid where I've always been doodling and drawing. I think one of my aunts is in chat, so she's probably can attest to like ever since I was a kid, I was drawing. But I have a couple artists in my family. As far as I know, none of them were professional, but that's just what they did. And so, as a kid, I would look up on YouTube and look up like tutorials, how to draw this, how to draw that. And then when it got to, when you get to like your junior and senior year of high school, the teachers and counselors start telling you like, hey, what do you know? Like, do you know what you're going to do with the rest of your life? If not, you're probably going to be homeless. So it's like, they're telling like you feel that like pressure to get everything figured out. So I was like, well, I kind of like really want to pursue this art thing. I'm really scared to because of how hard it is, but I was like, I at least want to try to develop my skills a little bit more. So what I did is just because art school can just be so expensive, and I just couldn't make it work. So what I did was I used my senior money that I got from like my graduation, and I paid for it's called New Masters Academy, which is a really cool. Basically, what it is, it's like a Netflix version of art lessons, but they're all done by the old, like the great Disney animators and the people who are like really like experts at their craft and their whole courses, right? So it's not just like a random thing. But so what I would do is I would look at that, and I had a friend and mentor who was super generous, and so like one thing that you always get taught with any career is like talk to people who are doing what you want to do and ask them advice. So I went on Facebook and I reached out to a bunch of real working comic book artists, and I listened to interviews of them, like any interview I could find of them talking about how they got started. And the pretty much the common denominator was they drew all day, every day. And I was like, that's awesome. How do you do that when you need to pay the bills, And so I had an awesome, he was my pastor at the time of kind of like a small house church we did. And basically I was telling him, and he was like, hey, I'll pay you to come out once a week to my property and just do all the stuff that I don't want to do, like, just random stuff. And then the rest of the week you can draw. So basically I did that. And then we had met before, but we hadn't really talked about art. And so then we met with like the book and stuff and working with Sanctuary and just continuing to do that. And so basically, yeah, just drawing all day, every day. And God's provided awesome opportunities for me. And so each opportunity makes me have to grow, so it's terrifying, but that's kind of like a short, condensed version of that. But yeah.
Synopsis, yeah. So did you ever feel like, and obviously it makes you a little nervous, I'm sure, to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, even though I don't necessarily have a clear path and I don't have any money. Here we go. That wasn't an easy thing for you.
No, it was, especially because like I had my whole high school path was also aimed at college, right? So when I got to that point, it kind of felt like I was throwing away everything I worked for. But then on top of that, like what you said, like the fear of, I mean, is this going to work? Like, how is this going to work out? And there wasn't a real clear path. And I'm not going to lie, like I doubt things all the time anyway. And so like I'm a very like somebody who like I'm constantly like I need to know the right thing. I need to know the right thing. And so, it's been full of doubts of because like you said, there is no clear path. It's just very much just kind of like figure it out. And yeah, it was really difficult, but I also was able to talk to a lot of awesome people. And I think one of the biggest things was I was able to talk to the pastor of mine at the time, and he basically just wanted to reiterate, like, because we talk a lot about, like paths, and we talk a lot about like what we want to do and stuff, but he kind of like helped reiterate that like God is so gracious that even if you completely mess everything up, he's not going to like disown you, right? Like, and like he'll provide for you, he'll take care of you, and if you find out this isn't the right thing, like he'll fix it up, And I also did have a couple moments of like really encouraging moments where I felt like God had really called me to do something. And seeing things confirmed through other people, which that helped a lot. And that still helps a lot. But yeah, like you said, it was a really hard decision to make. And I was, the fear of telling my family that I wasn't going to go to college was probably so hard. It was the hardest decision I had to make.
Yes. Yeah, you had to basically come out of the closet as an artist.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Well, dude, we have a question here, and it's a little bit long, but it's going right along with what you're saying. He says, I'm a young man. I wanted to ask for some advice on art. I've been struggling with doubts and a lack of confidence for a while now. I've always had a passion for art, drawing, and writing stories. When I was a kid, my first comic was a gift to my dad when I was 3 years old. It was written in broken English, which means I have no idea what it says. I did fall away from art for a period of time when I was a teenager, but I returned to it, and I've been studying in art and seeking to improve my skills. I still have such a love for art and creativity, coming up with ideas all the time. However, although I may have ideas for projects from illustration books to comics, mostly comics, I start welling up with doubts and lose my confidence. I start questioning whether any of this will be meaningful or if I have what it takes. And so the projects remain unfinished. I don't want what God, I don't want what God is, his love and mercy has given me in art to go to waste. So I can't give up, but I'm struggling. So this sounds maybe familiar, Hayden?
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking my language, my dude. Yeah. I mean, first of all, like I totally relate to everything he said, especially, I mean, now it's kind of like a muscle you're worked out, right? And because I've had opportunities of working with you guys and working with some other people, I'm not as much in that. I mean, I still have days where I'm like should I just give up? But I do think what he was saying, like, yeah, I completely have been there, and I understand where he's coming from. And I mean, man, it is such a, and I don't think this applies just to drawing art. I think a lot of people here can relate to this, where you kind of feel like you're not equipped to handle a certain project, no matter what it is. So like, let's like take out the art realm. If there's musicians here or whatever, it's just like, oh, like we want you to, like, you have this opportunity, but then you don't, you get in your own head and you say, well, I'm gonna mess this up completely. So I'm gonna suck so much. So might as well not try, right? And dude, I've totally been there. I had tried multiple times just to write little free versions of um they're called samples. So like 4-page versions of existing comic book characters just to have in your portfolio. And every time I would start, I would say, man, I suck at like drawing comics. I shouldn't even be doing this. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And I would get to that point where I just wouldn't feel quite ready yet. Right. Honestly, the thing that for me, like, I kind of had to learn that you kind of have to get pushed into it in a way, and you kind of have to be able to say, like, you have to be okay with it turning out not perfect, and you have to be okay with it not looking the way that you think in your head. And also, but I would also encourage this person, I don't know if you said his name or his or her name or not, but I would encourage them to, what's up?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
I said it's
Gotcha. Yeah, so I would say for this person, I mean, one, I would first iterate to this person because it sounds like there might be some perfectionism happening. At least that's what I feel when I am going through those times. And what I would say to that person is, first of all, let's take a step away from art real quick, right? Like, who are you in Christ? Like, you're forgiven, you're loved, you're delighted in, you're redeemed. Like, you are clothed in the righteousness of Christ, and the Father looks at you and sees his perfect holiness and blamelessness and righteousness and says, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased, right? And so when you draw something that sucks, if you draw something that's terrible, that doesn't take away from anything that we just said, right? And so, and also understanding that, like, God has given you talents and gifts to glorify him and to care for others, right? And so you don't have to have all this pressure on yourself. Now, with the second part of it is, be okay with making stuff that people will never see. It's okay to make some things and like make a couple comic book pages that nobody will ever see, right? Um, and that will help take off the pressure a little bit. And I would also encourage you to like set a goal to say, okay, I'm going to draw 4 pages of this comic book, and then say, I am not going to quit until I finish these 4 pages, even if they're awful, because it's better that you actually finish the pages and then are able to look back than it is to say, well, I'm just not good, so I'm going to quit. I've done that so many times, but the times that I've actually followed through, my art actually got way better. And also your endurance for drawing will also get way better. And so yeah, I would say that's kind of what I would answer with this guy. And also too, just to once again, this is a non-art related part of it, but just to be involved in a very encouraging church, and people who you can talk to, and people who can encourage you, and people who you can be in that environment around.
Yes, really important, isn't it, to be encouraged and to be part of the body of Christ? Absolutely. Well, Hayden is talking a little bit about drawing a comic book, and we want to talk about that in just a minute. Folks, if you're joining us, sign in. Christopher Keene is here, who was our resident creative guy. And he says, God has a huge refrigerator he hangs all of our artwork on.
I like that.
That's great. And there is no one more creative than Chris is. If you remember, Chris is the one that designed my hand for the Sanctuary album cover. He's done a lot of stuff. And again, he's a professor in theater arts at Azusa Pacific College and on sanctuary staff for decades because he's old.
Whoa.
Yeah. So appreciate that, Chris. Well, we're going to continue. We're going to talk a little bit about the comic book, and we're going to talk a little bit more to delve into what does it take to put a huge work like this together. And then Hayden's going to talk a little bit about what he's going on behind the scenes and what's coming up next. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back after this short break. All right, you're back with the two best looking guys on the internet today. See, there you go.
Boom.
So, Hayden, I want to talk a little bit about the Crimson Six. And folks, if you haven't gotten your copy of Crimson Six yet, what? There it is. The Crimson Six. It's a graphic novel, and if you're expecting just a small comic book, it is not. How many pages does it have?
This one is 155.
Wow. And maybe we can look at some of the artwork itself. There we go. You got 6 characters in it, and really awesome characters. They all represent something. Just a little bit different, and a lot of allegories in it. A lot of the story is beautifully written by Hayden, and he did such a great job in putting this together. You're not only a talented writer, but a talented sketcher,
artiste.
An artiste. So Crimson Six. The letter that we just wrote from this person that says I have ideas for comic books and all this, you hear that from a lot of people. I've got a comic book in my head, but it never gets down to paper. And, AV says, I love Crimson Six, the Christian metal version of the Avengers.
Heck yeah.
That's a huge compliment.
Thanks, AV.
It is. So, let's talk about this. How did this comic book come to be, and how did you get it off the ground? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, a lot of journaling, a lot of crying. No, I was kidding. Yeah. So, well, the idea came. I mean, this is becoming kind of like a sanctuary legend because I feel like the times that we tell this. So, yeah. So you and I were talking, and you were like, "Oh, like if you could figure out how to make a comic book based around metal, right? Like we would love to help you. Like, let's do that, And so the idea kind of, as soon as you said that, I imagined a giant heavy metal, almost like a giant black metal guy with long hair. And I just imagined him like fighting some demons, right? So I was like, okay, what can I do with that, right? And so originally, like the idea of the Crimson Six, the only thing that we really knew was you said it would be cool. Like you're the one who brought up the idea that it would be cool if all the characters represented a different type of metal. And then jokingly you said, and the bad guy has to be a pop star. But I was like, oh, I actually like want to roll with that. So yeah, so I kind of was like, okay, so here we have this general idea. How can I get this to a point? And my big concern was I don't want it to be cheesy, right? And I also like my goal also, and we talked about this too, was my goal wasn't to make like a outright like Jesus superheroes, right? Like I didn't want it to be like Bible man. Like I didn't want it to be like
Yes.
superheroes who were like hitting people with like crosses and Bibles the entire time while they're fighting, you know. I wanted it to be, and just because that's not what I like to enjoy. And so like for me, I way more enjoy the overall story. And so like I love like Tolkien, I love Lewis, I love those types of people. And so and I also just want it to be a book that everyone can read no matter what they are. And if they're not a Christian, they can get glimpses of the gospel and then but still enjoy a good book even if not. But also if people do like are believers, they can read it and they can say, oh, like I see some things going on. This is awesome. But all that being said, I was like, okay, so how do we do this? And so I took a couple days to think about it. And funny enough, going back to the question, I was like, you know what? Like a couple days after we talked, I was like, you know what? I'm not good enough at this. Like this isn't going to work out. Like who am I kidding? I can't do it. And then I felt encouraged by you and by some others to still do it, and I'm glad that we did. I'm glad that I didn't quit. But yeah, coming up with the idea, I basically I took the template of the hero's journey, which is I think Joseph Campbell is his name, and so like Star Wars is very much based on the hero's journey, and it's very much the idea that every single story has the same plot points, right? And so I was like, okay, how do we do this? We have all these characters. We need to get a character we can focus on, or else we're just going to be scatterbrained. So I came up with the character of Ronnie. So Ronnie Sullivan, aka Cauterizer, and he is kind of our main glimpse into this world. And so I was okay. So we have the main character, but how do we get everything? And what I did is honestly, for a couple of weeks, I just spent time writing out the character sketches, just writing out who they were, getting name ideas, not just for their human name, but for also their superhero name, which is a lot harder because every name is taken pretty much. So like trying to figure out that was pretty difficult. But basically, I wrote out all of the characters, and then I had the basic plot circle that I wanted to do. And with those, you kind of take away all of the heavy metal part, the pop singer being the bad guy part, and instead you focus on just the core stuff. And then once you have that, it actually becomes so much easier to incorporate the heavy metal and the pop singer as a bad guy, which could be done in a very poor way. And so, which is one of the reasons why I spent a lot of time with that. So basically, a lot of the ideas came just from sitting with it, read a lot of books on how to write, and just basically, as soon as I finally got to the final like story write out and stuff, I had the characters already written out. And but at that point, it wasn't called the Crimson Six, and at the point they didn't have like a cohesive Crimson Six or Crimson outfit or anything. It was just a bunch of superhero metalheads who hang out together. And as I was writing, it was one of those situations where I had the major plot points out, but a lot of it I just figured it out as I wrote and rewrote. And so the Crimson Six just came as I was writing, and I was like, sick. So here's what we're gonna do now. So that's kind of a short version of how I was able to get that part out, and how to think of a lot of those ideas. And when it came to thinking of the characters, I wanted to try to think of kind of the most recognizable genres of metal, because there's so many genres, right? But some of them are more obscure than others, and so I wanted to think about like the classics. So the main guy, the leader of the team, Luke or Vanquisher, he is kind of just like the classic metal look, right? So when you think of metal, you kind of think of this guy. And then Magnus, who's the giant, he's black metal, death metal, so he's got death mask, and he's kind of like the dude who's he's gonna get it done. And then Jackie, whose name is Spectacle, he's basically like 80s glam. We got Kevin, who Cyber Wraith, and he's actually like new metal. So I tried to incorporate a cool like technology to it. Ronnie's metalcore, so he's more of kind of like the screamo, and he's got a lot of angst. So I felt like that went well. And then who did I forget? Oh, Nita. Yeah. So Speeding Beauty. So she is like speed metal, obviously thrash metal, and so her name was actually something way different to begin with, but it was taken. And so I was trying to think of some cool names, and I was like, dude, Speed and Beauty would be cool. Like, and I was listening to GFM at the time when they were still around, and they had a thing called Beauty Core, and I was like, oh, if I could incorporate that somehow, and so I was able to come up with Speed and Beauty. So yeah, so basically just a lot of trial and error, sitting with it, and honestly just sitting there and writing it and kind of discovering it as I wrote.
Yeah. And I have to say, Hayden, that when you first gave me the script, when you completed it, and to read over before you really started drawing much of it, um, I was extremely impressed with the story. So a lot of times when you read a graphic book, either the writing part of it or the graphic part of it is exceptional, and the other maybe isn't quite up to par. There's some really poorly written, phenomenally good graphics wise, that are, and then the other way around too. This one, in my opinion, is extremely well written, and the graphics are awesome too. But this kind of does both. And honestly, I was very surprised at how good the writing was, but what a meaningful story it was. It captured you. I I was going to start reading it, and then I had something I can't remember that I needed to do, and I was just going to put it down and then come back to it a little bit later to read the rest, and I couldn't. And
Heck yeah.
finish because it was I got to see what happens. It's one of those things where it captures you, and we're not going to tell you anything about it, but it's a really, really good story. So when you have a good story, a good plot, something to go with, then the graphics begin, and that is a process, isn't it, Hayden? You spent how long? Actually, you did all the artwork, no
Yeah.
help. You did the artwork, 155 pages of maybe at least 4 frames or sometimes 2 frames in each page. But this is a lot of work. Talk about
Yeah.
that for me.
Yeah, so it ended up coming out to be 2 years of just doing the artwork. Like I was able to write the script. I think it was like between 2 and 4 weeks, but the writing, I mean not the writing, the drawing of the entire book, and also the lettering afterwards and the adding tone and stuff. By the time I finished all that, it was 2 years. And the other thing too is like, I wasn't solely working on that. Like I was working on other jobs to, pay the bills because as much as I would love to just work on the book. It's just right now not there. But um, yeah, it took me 2 years, and that was one thing that I wasn't prepared for. And I kind of had I had very unrealistic expectations with how fast I could draw it. I thought I was gonna get it done in like a month. That no, dude. I got it done in 2 years, and when I tell people that now, like sometimes I'll go to my old school to like talk to some of the classes there, some like the younger kids, and they can't believe it took anything over a year basically. But yeah, like you said, I mean, if you think about it, if anybody here's ever drawn, it takes a while to draw one picture. Well, the thing with the comic book is each page has like between 4 to 6 pictures, and so you're drawing like that many pictures on every single page, and you have to crank them out. And that's why, like, man, the people who work for Marvel and the people who work for DC are crazy because they're able to draw stuff that is just like they're able to get like I think like 22 pages done in less than a month, and that is crazy. Like I can't imagine that. But yeah, so it was a long process, and it was definitely a trying a trying process. Talk about doubt.
Well, and you weren't just doing this. On the screen, we just saw some other projects. You were designing all the sanctuary mugs and the T-shirts and the posters, and by the way, put the slide of Metal Dude up again. We have this character called Metal Dude, and we're getting ready to do a coffee table book from Metal Dude with all the Metal Dude comics in it that I'm excited to put out. But there are many of them. I have no idea how many we've done now, Hayden. But this is a kind of a once every 2 weeks guy that just kind of fun to read, and it's a comic strip basically. Metal Dude, and you were doing all of that and all of the creation of all these other things at the same time. So the 2 years is not just straight working on the comic book. You did all these other things too.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and then I also had for a brief time in the middle of that too, I was working for um not directly, but pretty much like for Fox Sports, like through like a third party type stuff, just
Yes.
drawing. And it wasn't a big thing, right? But the thing with that is it became kind of not, I don't want to say demanding in a negative way, but it is one of those things where like, okay, I'm planning this day to work on the book, and then you get a call and that day is now for this other project, and so yeah, it was hard to balance everything. And, I still struggle with that, especially because like I have more outside work this as I'm working on this next book than I did with the first book. So it's been kind of, as someone who like, on one hand, it can be frustrating because you really want, like, you have this idea that you just want it to be done because you just want to see the idea and you want it out and stuff. But then on the other hand, you're also like, well, I need to eat. So, you need to still do these things. But yeah, no. So that 2 years was full of not just working on the book, but it's like all types of work going on outside of it. Yeah.
Yes. And then the book isn't just about writing the storyline and doing the graphics. It's also about coordinating the effort. It's about putting it all together and getting ready to publish. It's about the publishing. It's about, all of that. There's a lot of work that goes into doing a book, as you found out, as we both know. Yes.
Yes.
So, folks, if you want to know where you can get this awesome book, The Crimson Six, you can go to, well, Amazon would be the easiest place probably. And there it is, The Crimson Six paperback. You'll see it there, not only in paperback, but Hayden, you've got it in Kindle as well. And I love the Kindle version. Um, with a lot of books, when you read it on Kindle, they've got, you go from page to page. This one goes from every picture to the next picture instead of page to page, and it makes it a whole lot more interesting. And it's color,
Yes.
which is
Minimal color. Minimal
yeah,
color.
right. But at least it's got some color, and it's so good. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would recommend the Kindle to, if anybody wants to read it, but maybe you've never read a comic book. And so you're like, well, I don't know how to read a comic book. Like, because as silly as that sounds, I mean, a lot of us feel that way, especially like if you try to read manga, which is the Japanese comic books, like you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? And so some people are just some people just feel kind of intimidated. And so if you do feel that way, the Kindle's great because I went in and every direction that you go will take you to the next panel in order. So you don't even have to worry about knowing which order to read. It'll just take you, and you just double tap panel and then you just swipe every time and it takes you to the next place. So if you're wanting to read the book, but you're like, I don't know how to read a comic book, the Kindle version is a great idea.
It's awesome. But all of that takes a lot of work, Hayden, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
this is
Oh yeah.
something overnight. Yes.
Yeah.
You
And
finished
that one was tedious. Yeah.
book one, and now what's next?
Book two.
Yeah. So you're almost done.
I am. Yeah. So this one has taken a little longer than the first one. So this one has taken me about 3 years now. And a couple of reasons for that. One is just, once again, just there's just side work that I have on the side, obviously. But also it is a bit longer. So the last one was 155 pages. This one's going to be probably 1 or 2 pages over 200. So it's probably going to be a 201, 202, 203 pages max. And so that's another reason why. But also, I really do think I've also kind of spent a lot more time on the art, and I think that I have a really hard time looking at the first book. It makes my like stomach hurt when I look at some of the art because I'm like, I could have done that better. But I'm really, really proud of the second book because I think the art level took like a leap from the first one. So I'm very excited for that.
Yes. Well, and it's been 3 years of doing a lot of other things too. We've really kept you busy for the
Heck yeah.
last year. Heck yeah. And I love that part. And I love that you've been involved with so many things. And Hayden and I have this relationship where I'll come to him and say, I have this idea. And that's all it is, just an idea. And he'll say, well, what do you see? What do you think? And I'll say, well, I kind of see this and this and this. But I know that what I'm seeing is probably lame because when I just say, you do it, because I've learned to give you a general idea and then let you go with it, because what you do is always better than anything that I could imagine. And I think there's only been maybe once or possibly twice when I've asked you to just correct something that wasn't exactly, how should I say, wasn't exactly in line with what was needed to portray whatever we were doing. And it was just a misunderstanding, not anything because of your artwork. But usually he enhances whatever it is. And with Metal Dude, it's been kind of a corporative effort that I really enjoyed. It always starts out with Hayden saying, do you have any ideas for Metal Dude this week? And that's how we start. And sometimes I'll say yes, and here's an idea that I have, and he'll say I like it, or he'll say, well, that's lame. Let's think about it. Yeah, and that's happened. Or sometimes I'll just say, I don't have an idea. What is your idea? And Hayden comes up with the greatest ideas. And I think it's kind of been almost a 50-50 thing that we've done in partnership doing Metal Dude. But I love the way they come out. And if you're not already a fan of Metal Dude, what? And soon we'll have the Metal Dude coffee table book out, and that'll be a lot of fun. But how do you go about drawing Metal Dude? Is it a kind of a different process that you use with it than you use for the Crimson Six?
It's basically like a super simplified version of what I do with the Crimson Six. So what I do typically is, so the thing with any type of comic book, so Metal Dude, like it may not seem like it's that much different, but I mean it may not seem like it's the same thing as other types of comics, but it still is a comic strip, right? And one of the most important things that I was told by some of the comic book artists I reached out to was it's all about storytelling, like, and not just storytelling in the sense of like writing, but a person who doesn't know how to read a comic book, or a person who hasn't read the script or whatever should be able to read and know exactly where everything's going. And especially if we're talking about Metal Dude, because if we're talking about someone who sees it on, they're just scrolling through their feed and they see it pop up, it shouldn't have to be a hard task for them to try to figure out what's going on in this simple little cartoon. So what I'll do is I'll just draw like I'll be like, okay, how many panels are we gonna do? And I'll put down the panels, like everything, no art, just 2 panels. And then I'll kind of basically write like a red arrow. I don't do this every time for Metal Dude, but I'll do like a red arrow that follows through, which is the eye flow. So I know exactly where I want whoever's looking at it to look. And so I'll do that. And then basically it's a lot easier because the more cartoony style is a lot faster and it's a lot easier to draw. So as soon as we know our idea, I just start sketching it. I make sure to leave room because one thing that I learned the hard way is you have to leave room for the words to come in, or else there'll be nowhere to put them and it'll cover up your art and just not look good. So I try to plan for that. And then pretty much from there, I just doodle, just kind of doodle and sketch and then have it out. Whereas the Crimson Six is a little bit more labor intensive just because the style's more like it's less cartoony, and so it's and there's a lot more panels that go on and stuff. But with Metal Dude, it's pretty simple from that aspect.
Yes. So I think people, when they visualize what you're doing to make all this work, they see you sitting at a table with a piece of paper and a pencil and just kind of sketching like you do in math class in high school.
Yeah.
That's not your process, is it?
No, I actually use a stone tablet. No, I'm just kidding. No, I use an iPad. Yeah, I use a chisel. I'm just chiseling, and it's not, pretty impressive. But and I do it all in Paris because I'm a true artiste. But
Yeah.
no, but I use right now. I have an iPad. The whole first book was actually drawn on my Surface tablet that I had. So it's basically like it's computer, but it also had like a drawing tablet with the pen and everything. And so I draw it in a program called Clip Studio, which is basically somebody took all of the good parts that for drawing from Photoshop and just made it one app. And so I used that, and so for me a lot of it comes down to, one thing. So before I got into it, I was one of those people where I was like, I'll never use digital art because that's like cheating and it's not true art. And then you realize, then I got a tablet, and you realize that just something being on a computer doesn't automatically make you better. Like I found that out the hard way. And so honestly, it came down to just because it's so much easier for us to do files and to kind of like get the finished product compared to if it was all paper. It would honestly might even take longer. We'd have to get a scanner to be able to scan everything at high resolution and to make it look good. So yeah, so what I do is, right now I have my iPad. So if we have a new metal dude, I basically just make a new canvas and I have the dimensions and I just get the sketch. And the nice thing is you can add layers. And so to keep other drawings from overlapping, and I can add layers and certain things. So it's a lot of fun. I really recommend, if anybody out there loves to draw and they're thinking about stuff, I really recommend getting the newer iPads. The older ones weren't quite there yet, even though they were kind of like advertising it. But I highly recommend the newer iPads. Are so amazing, man. We're all Apple here, so
We are. Yes. Well, and I've given you some projects, Hayden, that when you do one of the designs, you do it for T-shirts, posters, and you do it for mugs, but it's not the same picture. It's the
yeah.
same graphic, but the layout is totally different. So you're not just doing a layout; you're doing 3 layouts for that. And then once in a while, like we just did, I said, Hayden, I need I need metal dude holding a sign that says "Welcome to the storehouse," and I need him to be 12 feet high and 6 feet wide.
Yeah.
And you did it, but it's a different layout for that, isn't it? It's more of a vector. It's more when you blow something up that big, it has to have the detail. So it isn't just drawing. There's a lot you can do by picking up that iPad instead of piece of paper, because you're going to want to be able to size it correctly. The detail, all of those things are important, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, especially with the stuff we do too, because it's when we had the other thing too is like when we had Shopify for our merch, and now we're with Anchor with Anthony. The dimensions are slightly different, so it's like it helps to be able to just say, like, if Anthony is like, oh hey, like we need to move this, it helps if I can go in and just change some stuff compared to if I had it just all drawn on paper, that'd be a lot harder to finagle. That'd be a lot harder to figure out. So yeah, it comes in really handy to make a 12-foot metal dude. And shout out to Jason too, because Jason's awesome. He's the web wizard at Sanctuary.
Yeah.
But he's a lot of times my iPad can't go up that high dimension wise. Like it can get like halfway there. And so Jason's the man who can do all the crazy stuff on his end and make it even bigger. So he's come in helpful so many times. So shout out to Jason.
Yeah. Jason we call him our webmaster.
Yes.
And he has been for, gosh, I don't even know, 20, 25 years, whatever it's been. Yeah, he's been awesome. Well, so very soon and very soon, book number 2 is coming out. Do you have a projected release date yet, or is that still in the works?
I don't have an exact date, but I'm expecting around January or February of 2024, because art I have to go in and do the lettering and then have someone edit it to make sure I didn't completely make a mess of myself with the spelling typos. It's so crazy. I mean, you understand this because you write stuff. It's so crazy sometimes when you felt like you were in the right mind when you were typing something, and then you look back at what actually came out, and you're like, I'm not in the first grade. Like, why did I know I know the differences between they, there, like there, and there. Like, how come I,
Right.
so it's,
Yeah. And it's so easy to overlook when you do your own editing. Yeah, can't
yes.
do that. Absolutely. So the artwork, you're almost done with the artwork, and then the process of putting it all together becomes a huge thing, doesn't it?
Yes. So, I mean, I will say it's nothing compared to the art. So it's almost more like a cool down, it almost feels more like it's kind of like when you like run a marathon and afterwards you're supposed to just walk around for a little bit, to let your heart rate get down. That's kind of what it feels like. It's a lot less stressful and it's a lot less, it's a nice little cool down. And then then the fun stuff is when you have to try to get it deal with the actual book publishing and deal with Amazon and the different formatting. Man, that can be a real nightmare. I learned that the hard way. But once again, shout out to Steve Kuhn, who helped format it, and he did an amazing job. And he went on the phone with a customer service a lot to help us get it figured out. But yeah, so we're aiming for beginning of next year. I want to wait after the holiday season because typically, if it's not out right now, then it will just get lost in other Christmas shopping. And so I want it to be out after Christmas, but it's going to be out very soon after that. So I'm working to get it done, and so I'm really excited for it. I'm sure we'll probably talk about the plot of it here later, so I don't want to go too far, but yeah, so look forward to it very soon.
And when it's released, we'll do that. We don't have pre-orders yet. It isn't that far along, but I'm sure that'll be coming before too long.
Yep.
Shout out to Steve Coons, who does our layout and makes everything work on not just Amazon, but in all of the places that you buy books. And he's awesome. He's working on my new edition of Seriously, putting out the journal edition very soon, and he's working on that right now. And then his next thing will be, two things. He'll be doing my Teach, Meet, Eat, Pray book, and then also book number 2 of the Crimson Six. So we're not calling it book number 2. What are we calling it exactly?
Yeah, so it's going to be so a lot of times with graphic novels, you'll call it like volumes, right? So this will be the Crimson Six Volume 2, and this is the first time that we've announced like the subtitle. So I haven't even put it on my Instagram, so it's right here, but it's going to be called so Crimson Six, the Volume 2, no, Volume 2, The Tides of Judgment is the official
Awesome.
subtitle.
I like that. Awesome. Well, folks, don't forget, you can go to Amazon right now. Do it before you forget. Go to Amazon, check out the Crimson Six. It's right here, as you can see it. If you want hard copy, the paperback is awesome. It is so cool. If you want to do the Kindle version, it is equally as cool, depending upon which one is more comfortable for you. And check those out. That would be awesome. The Crimson Six. Before too much longer, we'll put out the coffee table book of Metal Dude, and more Metal Dudes are coming. We got more in the hopper, and we'll be getting those out. And, we have a lot of Metal Dude fans. He's kind of the sanctuary mascot, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's a very cool guy. We have a bunch of our mugs are actually the Metal Dude Collectors series. And so we have those too. And you can get all that at our website, and you can get Hayden's book going on Amazon and go check it out. There's all of our stuff, sanctuary.com/merch. And you see Metal Dude right there with the Sanctuary logo and some of Hayden's great artwork. Well, Mr. Hayden, you're awesome. You're the awesomest. I
You're
tell
the
you that.
grooviest.
How many times have we said that to each other?
Dude, we're the groovy duo, man. We're the groovy duo.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
But dude, we'll have you back when the book comes out, and we'll talk about it and go through some of the preview of it and some of the pictures and the book cover and all that kind of stuff as it gets a little closer. For now, if you haven't read book number 1, make sure you do that. Next week, folks, Adam Cook will be here with us, this singer for A Hill to Die Upon, with the special announcement of a very special release, an unusual one. And we want to talk about that next week. I'm not going to tell you much more than that, but, it'd be awesome. And it says, can Hayden do a design on a Cameo Sanctuary shirt? I'm sure he could. We'll have to think about that.
We could figure. I think we might have to talk to Anthony about that because it would have to be the whole shirt. So I don't know but if we can, we will.
I think we can. Let's do it. Let's do it. Folks, thank you for joining us today. Great to have you here from all over the world, checking in. Great to see our good friends from everywhere. Hayden, you're the awesomest. Thank you for joining.
I learned from the best.
Yeah. Folks, don't forget you are blessed. So go and be a blessing. Go.